Hello, welcome to the HockeyNorth podcast. I'm your host today, Tyler Croom, joined here with the one and only Brendan Pawliw. Brendan, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you very much for asking, Tyler.
Any day, man. And pretty busy weekend here in Prince George is, of course, 7 games total from the Cariboo hockey program. And as the Capitals were in town, as well as the U15 AAA Cougars and the U18s who had their pink in the rink night. Lots of hockey and, really good turnout for all teams here this weekend to get some hockey action in.
Yeah, it was a lot of really good action. The U15s and the U18s. I had the pleasure of calling all four of those against the V&E Chiefs and the Vancouver Northwest Hawks. Couple of dandies on the U18 side. Saturday and Sunday, the pink in the rink game, of course, a 3-2 overtime victory for Cariboo, followed by a nail biter today, Sunday rather, a 1-0 victory for the Hawks, where John Castro stole 2 points for the Hawks in that game, and then U15s, you had a dramatic last-second tie, which the Cougars drew in even terms on Saturday, and then you had obviously the shutout loss in the second half of that doubleheader to the Chiefs. So definitely not the finish they were looking for in the end of that series, but all in all, a pretty decent weekend.
Absolutely. And in the for the Capitals as well, they had the Fraser Valley Rush here in town for a triple header, as most teams do when they make their way here to the north. And unfortunately, the Fraser Valley Rush, unfortunately for the Capitals, that is probably the best team that the U18 female AAA division has seen in a long time. And um, it went 0-3 on the weekend for the Capitals, but I think a really cool opportunity for those players to see that level of competition here on their home ice. And you could see the girls getting a little bit better as each game went on, and trying to match quite a more experienced and older and very very high powered rush team.
Yeah, Fraser Valley, pretty high powered. We were actually in awe of their group last year on how they could bring back the vast majority of their team this season. It seems like they've somehow gotten better year over year here, and definitely flexing their muscles in the female AAA U18 rankings here in the BC Elite Hockey League.
Certainly. And the other Fraser Valley team, the U18 AAA Thunderbirds. They were hosting the U17 AAA Cariboo Cougars, and back in Abbotsford, in the Fraser Valley Thunderbirds as well had a really good weekend as they won both those games against the U17 Cougars. So definitely not the weekend the U17 Cougars were looking for on the road, but lots of hockey here to be played down the stretch heading into playoffs. U17 Cougars are still sitting pretty here in the standings. And with that said, I think we're going to transition now into our Northern Junior breakdown.
Now we'll start things off in the Western Hockey League. We'll start it off with Carson Golder of the Kelowna Rockets, having himself a good season at 27 points in 39 games. Carson Golder not playing since January 6th. He was not in the lineup in their two losses against the Victoria Royals. Royals now just 1 point back of the Rockets for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference. Miguel Marquez of the Lethbridge Hurricanes having himself a weekend. Not only did he score against his hometown team, the Prince George Cougars, in a 4-3 overtime victory at home, but he also scored again in a game against the Red Deer Rebels at home, a tight one where they lost by a 2-1 score. And then coming back today, winning in Calgary by a lengthy margin, did the Hurricanes, a 4-1 over the Hitmen. Marquez earning assist in that game. So 3 points in as many contests for him. His teammate and Chetwynd product, Hayden Smith, 6 points in 42 games this season for the Hurricanes. Hayden Smith did not record a point during the 3-3 stretch for the Hurricanes. Caden Brown of the Prince George Cougars, who we had on this podcast, also a HockeyNorth athlete, 19 points in 37 games this season for the Cougars. Brown also held off the score sheet this weekend for PG. His teammate, Fisher O'Brien, still finding his way in the top six despite the fact that the Cougars traded for Zach Funk at the trade deadline from the Calgary Hitmen. Fisher O'Brien, 1 assist in a game against the Swift Current Broncos. That was a 4-3 loss. He also had a helper at the trade deadline game against the Kelowna Rockets, a game in which the Cougars won 3-zip. Also in the Western Hockey League, Dawson Creek's latent feist to the Regina Pats, 16 points in 42 games for him. Feist over the weekend, just the one helper and a victory over the Saskatoon Blades. Smith Redmond of the Saskatoon Blades still stuck on 1 assist in 23 games this season for Saskatoon. His teammate and McBride product, Tanner Molendijk, 22 points in 32 games on the Blades back end. He had a goal in that 7-4 loss to the Regina Pats on Friday. Tanner Molendijk also one of many WHL players named to the CHL Top Prospects game. And speaking of that game, Prince George product, Nico Mijadovic with the Seattle Thunderbirds, 33 points in 39 games for him. Also named to that game as well. The rosters were announced for those respective teams during the course of the week. Mijadovic, of course, having 3 points in his last 4 games for the Thunderbirds, 2 of them goals. He had the overtime winner against the Winnipeg Ice midweek. Also had another goal against the Saskatoon Blades on Saturday. That was sandwiched in between an assist against the Prince Albert Raiders. Ethan Semenek of the Vancouver Giants of Fort St. John, BC, 16 points in 28 games. He'll log even that much more ice time now following the trade of Zach Ostapchuk to the Winnipeg Ice. Semenuk, 2 assists in 3 games over the weekend for him. Switching gears to the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, Alex Achitwa of the Nipawin Hawks, 18 points in 34 games. Prince George product held off the score sheet this weekend for Nipawin. Jackson Hassman of the Weyburn Red Wings, 17 points in 32 games. 13 of those points have been goals. Hassman held off the score sheet this weekend. He did have 1 assist on January 10th in a game against the Notre Dame Hounds, so congratulations, Jackson, on his on-ice success there. Owen Palfreyman of the Melfort Mustangs, the Whitehorse product, 3 helpers in 11 games since being acquired into the SJHL. 1 assist there in a game against the Humboldt Broncos. And last but certainly not least, Dawson Smith of Whitehorse of the LaRange Ice Wolves, 15-7 on the year, 2.38 goals against average, 934 save percentage. Lost another start, unfortunately, this time to Ochitwa and the Nipawin Hawks. Stopped 30 of 33 Hawks shots and had a 3.08 goals against average in that game. To the BCHL, John Harrington of the Prince George Spruce Kings, still leading the way offensively for them. The former Cariboo Cougar, 32 points in 34 games for that team. Lyndon Mackow, 16 points in 34 games for the product out of Vanderhoof. Scott Cousins, 6 points in 22 games for him. And, of course, Jordan Fairley, former Prince George, or a Cariboo Cougar rather, looking at his season stats, 16-8 on the year, 2.78 goals against average, and an even 900 save percentage. Nathan Mackey of Prince George, the captain of the Salmon Arm Silverbacks in the Michigan State commit, 30 points in 35 games for him. Diego Johnson of the Merritt Centennials, 12 points in 31 games this season. Last point was a goal back on January the 7th against the Vernon Vipers. And, of course, Quinn Disher, reacquired into the BCHL by the Cowichan Valley Capitals. He started the year on a near point per game pace with the Trail Smoke Eaters, got dealt to Brooks, and was reacquired back into the BCHL by Cowichan Valley. Made his debut over the weekend, pointless in 2 games for the Capitals. To the Alberta Junior Hockey League, Hunter Brown, 32 points in 35 games for the Spruce Grove Saints, the 19-year-old out of Fort St. John. Continuing on with his point per game pace, he had a goal against Lloydminster, followed by an assist in another home game against Bonnyville. Over the weekend, his teammate Brophy Dunn of Prince George, 11 points in 32 games. He was held off the score sheet in the game against Bonnyville. Decker Moinchin of the Grand Prairie Storm, Prince George product, having a good weekend for himself. He had an assist back on January the 8th. That was followed up by a goal on Friday against Calgary. Then against Black Falls, he had 15 penalty minutes in that game, including a fight. So congratulations, Decker, for an eventful weekend in Grand Prairie. Amar Power of the Swan Valley Stampeders, 3 points in 22 games for Amar. He was held off the score sheet over his last 2 contests against the Dauphin Kings as well as Niverville. Switching course to the Junior B ranks now. Kootenay International Junior Hockey League, Jasper Tate, 9-7-0-1 on the year for the Nelson Leafs. Tate lost his last start on Saturday against Castlegar, allowing 3 goals on 22 shots. So Jasper Tate still stuck on 9 wins. His teammate in Fort St. James product, Dawson Davis, 11 points in 31 games. Pointless in his 2 games over the weekend for the Nelson Leafs. Taking a look at the Kamloops Storm, they have a couple of Quesnel products on their team. First one is Jake's Phillips Watts, 9 points in 31 games for him. Also on the roster, his brother Colton Phillips Watts, the netminder for Kamloops. He's 10-1 on the year in 12 games, a sparkling 1.39 goals against average and a .949 save percentage. So good job, Colton. His last game, January the 13th, a win against Sicamous, where he made 27 saves on 28 Eagle shots. Sawyer's Coyotes lighting things up in the KIJHL as well, thanks to a handful of northern products. Carter Yarsh, 59 points in 31 games. Jack Henderson, 55 points in 30 games. Scrolling down the list, Ethan Flores, 15 points, 31 games. Zach Leslie, 12 points in 25 games for him. Then, of course, you scroll down a little bit more. You have Kenny Giroux of Prince George, the Cariboo grad, 10-4 on the season and 17 games played. 3.12 goals against average, .901 save percentage there. Then, of course, from the Kelowna Chiefs, you have Dane Levesque with 15 points in 32 games. The Kitimat product having himself a season there. And then Jackson Redmond still stuck on 7 points in 30 games for the Chiefs. They did welcome back Maddox McGarity, formerly of the Swift Current Broncos. He's had 4 points in 5 games since returning from the Western Hockey League. Switching gears to the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League, Chase Pacheco of the Port Alberni Bombers having himself a season, now 23 goals on the year, 37 points in 33 games. 2 goals in a game against Victoria, followed by 2 goals and a helper the following night for Port Alberni. So congratulations, Chase, on his on-ice efforts. Now we wrap things up with the Canadian Sports School Hockey League. Riley Peterson of Smithers, the 07 forward, 15 points in 23 games for the Rink Hockey Academy's U16 prep squad that included a 2-assist effort on Saturday for him. Brett Peebles of Prince George, the 07 forward of the Burnaby Winter Club Academy, 10 points in 7 games. He had 1 helper over the weekend as well. Chase Harrington got called up for another game by the Spokane Chiefs. He's tearing it up for the Delta Hockey Academy's U18 prep squad, 24 points in 16 games for Chase. Jace Johnstone of the Pacific Coast Hockey Academy's U18 team, the White Horse product, 14 points in 22 games for Jace as well. Scrolling down a bit further, Cameron Schmidt of Rink Hockey Academy's Kelowna prep team, 9 points in 4 games. That includes a 6-point outing on January the 8th. So Cameron Schmidt, much like Chase Harrington, getting ready for the Canada Winter Games out in PEI. Landon Copper, who had his rights in the WHL, traded to the Kelowna Rockets earlier this week. 16 points in 18 games for him as the White Horse product, having himself a season down in the Okanagan. So was Callis Pierce of Prince Rupert, the forward for the Rink Hockey Academy's U18 prep squad, 20 points in 20 games. Callis having himself a pretty good weekend before this one, where he had 6 points over 2 games. Switching to the female side, Alex Walchuk of the Delta Hockey Academy's female U17 prep side, 5-5 on the season in 11 starts. She's lost her last 2, though, as Alex has been a pretty busy netminder. She stopped 34 of 36 saves against the Northern Alberta Hockey Extreme in a tight one there. Speaking of the NAX, Maria Eyre of Fort St. John, the former Northern Capital, 18 points in 23 games. The McEwen grad commit, 1 goal over the weekend for her. Her teammate Casey Dittner, 9 points in 23 games. She had 1 assist, 1 goal and an assist in 4 games this weekend for the NAX. McKenna Lloyd Howe of the Okanagan Hockey Academy's female U18 prep team, the Temple Ridge product, 17 points in 19 games. 2 goals on Friday, 2 more goals on Saturday for the Okanagan Hockey product out of Tumbler Ridge. Also lighting up the ice is Haley Armstrong of the Rink Hockey Academy's Kelowna female U18 prep side, 25 points in 21 games. That included an 11-point weekend for her over the course of 4 games. So Armstrong also heating up at the right time for Rink Hockey Academy. And last but certainly not least, Jewel Stokes of the Winnipeg Rink Hockey Academy U18 female prep team. She is from Terrace. 6 points in 20 games on the season. That included a 3-assist helper over the weekend on Saturday. That was in a 7-1 victory over the St. Mary's Academy prep team over the weekend as well. So there you have it. That's your hockey wrap-up for your Northern Hockey products at all levels here as we continue on with this week's episode of our podcast.
Excellent. And we'll just do another quick recap here of the updates for the over the weekend for the Cariboo hockey program. So the U15s, they were hosting Northeast Chiefs here in Prince George. As we mentioned earlier, they tied in the first game after a beautiful goal by Wesley Lizotte late to tie it up to force overtime, which inevitably was inconclusive near the end. Though some good chances both ways for each team. Northeast came back with vengeance on Sunday and got the win. The U15 Cariboo Cougars go 0-1 and 0-1. The U18 AAA Cariboo Cougars were hosting the Northwest Hawks. Josh Sale wins it in a thriller at the Pink and the Rink night on Saturday to make that one a 3-2 victory for the Cariboo Cougars. And then on Sunday, John Castro comes up huge, and it is a shutout for him as the Hawks earn the split. And then the Northern Capitals hosting the league leading Rush, go 0-3 on the weekend. And then our U17 AAA Cariboo Cougars going 0-2 against the Fraser Valley Thunderbirds in the Fraser Valley. Now, with that concluded, Brendan, how about you bring us in on our guests for this week?
Yeah, we've got 2 guests. We're taking it back to the grassroots level this week. We have Theresa Philips of the BC Hockey, the female Northern Hockey Zone leader in that organization, of course, for our Vanderhoof listeners and viewers. A longtime executive with Vanderhoof Minor Hockey for nearly 2 decades, still helping out with that organization as well. Not in a executive capacity this year, but I chatted with her, and I also spoke with the Northern BC Female Predators hockey program. A lot of on-ice success there at the U18, U15, and U13 levels. Bobbie, Zimmer, and Len Potvin of the general manager and coaching staff areas there. And just 2 grassroots interviews. Kick things off with Theresa here, just talking about growing the female game in general across the north, and just talking about some of the geographical challenges as well, compared to maybe what you would not see in the lower mainland. But a pretty good interview with Theresa here, and here it is. Well, my next guest on the Hockey North podcast has been one of the bigger advocates for female hockey, as well as hockey in general in the Vanderhoof and northern areas. With me now is Theresa Philips, the female zone hockey coordinator for the northern region for Vanderhoof and outlying areas. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Welcome anytime. Theresa, you have a female hockey jamboree taking place in Vanderhoof towards the mid to late January, in and around the exact same weekend as the Winter Classic where the Cariboo Cougars and Northern Capitals will be. I guess just maybe talk about the Jamboree itself and how big an event this is usually.
So, yeah, we are running it with the Winter Classic. That is on purpose to give the U7s, U9s, females the opportunity to see, where they could go with hockey. They're going to be guests of the Capitals. They're going to go to the games. They're going to enjoy some skill sessions with the Capitals. And then they're going to, it's going to be a full day for them. It's going to be great. Right now we only have 19. It's a little low numbers, but it's also hard with that group. They're either really gung-ho or they don't want to commit fully. So hopefully we get some more registrants for that. But either way, they're going to have a great day. I'm looking forward to it.
And I guess maybe talk about the importance of giving, the kids the exposure to the older age groups and the access to the players to kind of plant the seed in their mind that, there is a higher level awaiting them if they want it.
Yeah, and it's so important for the females. We just had the World Junior, so everybody's talking about Connor Bedard. For the females, what is that? Well, maybe that's Rachel Lowen from the Capitals, or Sarah Pressmo that was from Vanderhoof but now plays for the Capitals. So it's so important for the up and comers to see where they can go with that, to the Capitals and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a position with BC Hockey, female zone lead for the Northern region, Vanderhoof, Prince George, and everywhere in between. Just maybe talk about what that position entails and how you envision the female brand of hockey going in the North, and how you try to grow it.
Yeah, these are positions that BC Hockey created a few years ago. It was all kind of stuff that I was already doing, just trying to make opportunities available to the females. But basically our job is to promote, enhance, and provide opportunity for female hockey. So in the North, for example, I think this is our second full year of having a league. So prior to they didn't have a league, so they could play in the Omaha, so the Okanagan, as guests, but they didn't have a league of their own. So now we have a league. There's 4 teams in each of the divisions: U13, U15, U18. So that's something we've worked on. Just mostly just connecting people to know, okay, but maybe I don't have enough girls in my town, but if I connect 2 towns, well, maybe we can do a tournament team. Because the thing, and it's not just the North, the Kootenays also have the same issue. If you take the girls out of minor hockey, like mainstream minor hockey, then there's also tends to be not enough players for the boys. So we don't ever want to take away from anyone, but also it's nice for the girls to have all female opportunities as well. So it's just we're really unique with the small towns in the North, small associations, and they might only have 12 people on a roster and 3 of them are female. So if you take them out and it's all female, then you've got 9 players that don't have anywhere to go. So it's trying to find that balance and making things that work while providing those opportunities for the female as well.
Mm-hmm. How did you get involved in hockey and wanting to grow the sport, the grassroots level for the females? I've had a couple of guests on the show earlier, the likes of Lyndon Mackow and Ella Boone, who are playing at higher levels now. They both mentioned your name and gave you a lot of credit in terms of how you were promoting the game in Vanderhoof, because you were with minor hockey in an executive role for nearly 2 decades. Just to maybe talk about where that passion came from to get involved in the game and try and grow it from, I guess, the female perspective.
I've always been a big fan of the game. Like, I love hockey. I love to read about it, watch it, listen to it. There's nothing like being on the ice when no one's there. You're the first one on the ice. Like, I love hockey and I want everyone to have that opportunity. So let's make it happen. I'm like, what's the issue? Okay, let's fix it. I don't want to sit around and have meetings about it and talk about it and analyze it. Let's just fix the problem. So whether it's the equipment shed that we started or providing opportunities for kids to play, let's just make it happen so that everyone can love it as much as I do, because it's great. I didn't grow up playing hockey. I played ringette, which was awesome, but girls didn't play hockey back then. But I watched it. Like we would always have a ringette tournament in Port Coquitlam, so we'd go see a Canucks game, and then spring break we'd go to Edmonton, and so I was a huge fan of the Oilers of the '80s, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier. I just love hockey. I'd collect hockey cards. I still do. Yeah, I just love it. I want everyone else to have opportunities to play as well. And so I think it was when I went to university, there wasn't a ringette team. So someone said, well, why don't you play hockey? And it never dawned on me, oh, maybe, okay, let's do this. So then I started playing hockey and then came home, got married, had 3 kids. Kids got involved in, our son got involved in minor hockey, and it was just easy for him. There was teams and coaches, and then our girls started wanting to play, and it wasn't that same opportunity for them at all. So then had started a female team in Vanderhoof, and we played all over. And I think it didn't really hit me until I had friends who had older kids that were dropping out because their females, were starting to enter hitting hockey, and it wasn't a good place for them, and they had nowhere to go. So then I'm like, this is a problem. You don't really want 14-year-olds on a women's team. That's not a good mix. So how do we fix this? And I guess that's really when I got involved with the female side of it, is just making opportunities.
Mhm. What does it mean to you to see players like, you mentioned Sarah Pressmo, but I'll mention Ella Boone again, to see kids like that be from the community, go on, play for the Capitals, come to their hometown during Winter Classic weekend, and get the opportunity of playing at the post-secondary level?
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so happy for them. And there's so many opportunities for them if they want it. Like, since Ella was 8 years old, this is the direction she wanted to take, and she did all of the steps to get there. So I'm super proud of her. And Sarah's on the same path, and Lauren Baker, and there's so many of those kids, and they have those opportunities now. They're there for them. It's not on the same level yet as the male side of hockey, but it is getting there. And there is, you look 10 years ago when my oldest daughter was just getting out of hockey. There's so many more opportunities now for the females coming up than there was before. So it makes me really happy to see.
Yeah, and you have a lot of people from the Vanderhoof, Fort St. James area that not only played but made it, that played pro. I mean, you have obviously the Playfairs, you have Samoas, you have a few guys that have played at that level. Now you got, the Ella Boones, who are now playing at Trinity Western. There are other players that I've covered with the Cariboo Cougars. Marcus Allen, nearby Fort St. James. Booker Daniel played for the Cariboo Cougars. He played junior for Tri-City and junior A. So there's been a smattering of players from that area that have made it or have made it onto a junior roster, or they've played university.
Yeah, I think we're really lucky in our area. We do have a lot of great coaches, and the kids obviously though need talent and the drive, right? You can have the best coaches in the world, but if you're not a player that's driven or works at it, you're probably not going to go anywhere. So these kids that are going, it's because they've worked hard. They've put in the time, they've shot the pucks, they've done the jump squats, they've worked at the gym, they've done all of the work. And then I find that our small towns are very supportive of our hockey kids as well. You don't just get there because of one coach or one set of circumstances. It's a whole community that gets those kids there. And I find our town's very supportive of not just our town, but most northern towns. They're hockey towns. That's what defines us, which kind of sounds silly to say, but it really does. You go to any northern town and you go to a rink and you're going to see someone, and you've got history with those people. And it really does take a whole community to get those kids there.
Mm. What do you think some of the challenges are, or additional challenges are, that maybe some of the that are unique to the northern communities that maybe aren't prevalent or non-existent to some of the more metropolitan areas like the GVA, the Island, places like that?
Oh, for just looking at the Northwest zone, which is what I'm a part of, so Vanderhoof to Prince Rupert, geographically, we're really screwed. Like, in the greater Vancouver area, you have a lot of teams within a very short travel area. Here, we don't have that. Vanderhoof Minor Hockey, I think, has 130 kids. So you might have one team in each division where the bigger centers, are blessed with having more kids. I do find, it's getting harder and harder to attract kids to hockey because of the cost, because you're traveling more, and there's more things to do. When my son was playing hockey, there was no lacrosse, there was no football, there was no, you played hockey in the winter, and in the summer you rode your bike. Like, now there's so many other things challenging kids for that, and parents for their recreational dollar too. We're making it's tough for families to play hockey. It is getting expensive, and I don't know how we start making it more affordable again.
You mentioned to me that you spent a lot of time with Vanderhoof Minor Hockey. While you don't have an executive title this year, just maybe take us through some of the roles that you worked through during that time, and what you tried to do to kind of make that Vanderhoof Bears, Vanderhoof Minor Hockey program the way that it's been for a long time.
Yeah, and again, it's team on the ice, but it's an executive team too. So, lifelong friends, Holly Mackow, we've done a bunch of things together. My pal Lisa Funk, we run the equipment shed. John Pressmo is the female coordinator there in Vanderhoof. We've had some great presidents. It really does take a whole team to get these kids going and having the same philosophy on hockey. What is our goals? We want the kids to have fun, but we also want to challenge them, compete, and make it a safe and fun environment for them. But as far as for me, I've pretty much done every role. Like, I've been sometimes all at once on one team: manager, safety person, coach. I have been treasurer. I have been ways and means. I have been, what else? You just do what needs doing, right? In your small associations, you might have the title of treasurer, but if you need to go get jerseys, you're going to go get jerseys. Or if you need to also be a coach, you're going to be a coach. That's what I really love doing, is being on the ice with the kids and coaching. But the policy and procedure side of it, being on an executive or with BC Hockey, kind of takes me away from that, which I love both sides of it, but I prefer to be on the ice with the kids. That's what I love.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about that equipment shed that Vanderhoof Minor Hockey launched before the pandemic. Then it kind of hit, everything stopped, and then it wasn't really until recently where you could really see that idea and initiative come to fruition. Just maybe expand on that a little bit more.
Well, actually, how it started was a couple of us were at a Northwest District hockey meeting in Smithers, and they run an equipment shed. And so we got them to show us what they do, and they just had a room, and they just had bins of equipment that they could give out to kids. And we thought, oh, that seems easy enough. So we went home and brainstormed, and I don't remember exactly what was going on, but a couple of us were at a different seminar. We were in Quebec, of all places, and there was lots of internal fighting between a couple of minor hockey associations. We're like, the season hasn't even started yet. Like, how do we get everyone to work together and make hockey fun again? So we're like, we at this conference we were at, there was a really good guest speaker. I'm like, we need a guest speaker that can command a room and talk about all the great things hockey is. And then through a mutual friend, Jimmy Playfair's name came up. He wasn't working at the time, so within 10 minutes, he called me and wanted to know what my plan was. So I told him, and he's like, well, would you mind if my brother Larry and my son Dylan came as well? I'm like, nope, that would be awesome. So we worked with them, and it was a great evening. And I think we were able to give a bunch of money to Fort St. James Minor Hockey, because that's where the Playfairs are from. And so that was important to them, that we give back to Fort St. James. And then we started our equipment shed with that money. So we worked with the district of Vanderhoof, and they gave us a room at the arena, and we bought bins and people donated equipment, and then our local dry cleaner, they're the drop-off point, and they give us a great deal on sanitizing the gear, and then we sort it in bins, and when kids need gear, we meet them there and get them outfitted. And like I said, I think we've done about 30 sets of gear, full sets of gear this year, plus miscellaneous parts. So it's great. Everyone, I mean, sometimes it's funny, we probably could have started a hockey equipment museum with some of the stuff that people donated that we just can't use, like the old Jofa helmets and, the horsehair goalie pads and, stuff like that. But for a hockey buff like me, someone who really enjoys the history of it, it was kind of fun to look at it, but lots of the stuff we couldn't use. So but everybody's got equipment. Kids grow so fast, you don't know what to do with it, just donate it. There's always a kid that can need it.
Did you ever have like a favorite team or a favorite hockey player or idol growing up? Because you got the bug quite young, just watching it, and then of course you played ringette before playing hockey. But did you have any like idols or players or teams that you looked up to at all?
Well, so it is possible to love two teams. So I love the Vancouver Canucks. So back when I started, it was like, Tony Tanti and those guys, Thomas Gradine, and then the Oilers of the 80s. So Wayne Gretzky is my absolute favorite. Mark Messier, Paul Coffey, all those guys. Yeah. And then, probably wasn't until I would say I was like 16 when you started, get the hockey news, and there might be like a little blurb about female hockey. And then you started reading about, who's this young, Haley Wickenheiser and, Danielle Sauvageau and Therese Brison and all these, you would read just a little bit about it. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, there are women playing. And then now it's just grown exponentially, which is quite exciting. Like TSN had the women's U18s on, which I'm quite loving. It's good to see the exposure for sure.
Yeah, I was actually watching that yesterday at one of the pubs in Prince George. They had that on the Canada-Sweden game. So yeah, it's nice to see that that national exposure for the women's game, being televised, where maybe 10, 15 years ago it was just really the main national team and nobody else. Now it's kind of branched off with everybody, and it's kind of consistent with what you're seeing on the male side with all the exact same tournaments for the exact same age groups being shown.
Yeah, and yeah, I love the support that it's getting, and not everyone's a fan, but that's okay. There are a lot of people out there that are, and it means so much to those girls to watch it. Like, it's awesome. I was going to say, during the pandemic, when everything was shut down, I reached out to a bunch of the high profile female players. We did a series of podcasts called Chick Chats. And so I had Cassie Campbell, I had Haley Wickenheiser, Sammy Jo Small, Kelsey Roberts, who was the Can West Player of the Year for Calgary that year for the Dinos. And, we had them about once every couple months, but it was so great. All those women were so willing to give up an hour of their time to talk to these girls in the North. It was such a great thing. I was sad when everybody got busy, and not sad that COVID was over, but sad that opportunity was over, because it was awesome. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And of course, too, during that Winter Classic weekend where the Jamboree is during that exact same time, Capitals, of course, go out to schools and talk to the kids as well as along with the on-ice sessions. I would imagine the personal connection that the players get, as well as the school age kids, I would imagine that's a huge part of it too. Just knowing that the physical evidence is right in front of you, that it's possible to get somewhere despite being from a smaller, more rural community.
Yeah, the school visits are the best. So yeah, we have them lined up for them for the Friday when they come into town. They're going to go to Sinkit View Elementary, and I'm hoping we get it lined up with one more school just for the Lakers when they come to town. And then some of the Capitals are going to stay after their game, and they're going to do a skills session. And then some of them will hopefully stay and be guest coaches and be on the ice as referees, but for U7, U9, you kind of just want to guide them and stuff. And I think that'll also be great for the littles to have, some of the capitals and some of the, older players that didn't move on to capitals. Like my youngest daughter, she is just 19. She took her coaching. So now she's going to be on the bench. And a lot of the kids will know her too. She didn't go to a higher level of hockey than just A level, but any kind of mentorship you can give those girls, or any kid in general, male or female, that mentorship is so important to their development. You can just see it when they step on the ice and those older kids are on there. They love it. It's a great component.
How do you envision the women's game continuing on its upward trajectory? I've asked this question to a lot of capital players that I've interviewed on the show. What's the one thing you would like to see changed or done better on the female hockey side? And the answer is always, more funding, a more consistent sports league, professional women's hockey league in Canada, better salaries, because the registration numbers are clearly there across the country. Is it really as simple as that, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. You're just kind of hitting everything. I mean, it's multifaceted, right? Like it starts with, we have the numbers. Now we need to develop the coaches. And, at BC Hockey, we are working on that. We have a bunch of females that have taken their coaching certificate, but they're just more in an assistant role. They don't grab the bull by the horns, and it's for a variety of reasons. They never played hockey like myself, and they're not comfortable. Well, I didn't play, so therefore I probably shouldn't coach. So it's building mentorship for the coaches. Not that we don't have great male coaches and that male coaches can't coach female, because absolutely they can. It's just getting more females out there. And it's another component of, okay, well, maybe if I don't move on as a player, here's something I could do. Maybe I can send my talents to coaching. I would love to see a professional league. I hope that the PWHPA and the PHF get it sorted out. For me personally, I look at the PWHPA is the NHL and the PHF is the AHL or the ECHL. They're the farm team, but they don't think so. So they need to figure it out. Both of them have pros and cons, and I think I'm hoping soon we get it figured out, because the money's there. Viewership is a big issue for them, but how can you watch it if it's not played anywhere? So it's, getting the networks involved, which they are getting more involved, and you can watch a lot of the PHF games on live stream, and PWHPA, when they have their showcases, those are all televised. It's just, I'm involved with WickFest, so that's a big female tournament that Haley Wickenheiser runs, and being involved with that, you can see, the difference being made with just having those female opportunities for the girls. It really inspires them to be able to see other females. I do think the money's there, like it's coming. Obviously we want it now, but it does take time to grow. I mean, the NHL didn't start overnight, right? You talk to players like from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, their money is not nearly what the Connor McDavids and people are making now, right? So it all evolves. There's a process in it all. I think they're on the right track. They have, at least for the PWHPA, they have the right people driving the ship. So I'm hopeful that there'll be a league soon.
Yeah, it'd be good for all levels. Many people have said maybe the NHL should just sponsor it or find some way to, pitch in as well. There's obviously no perfect answer, but I would hope that there's one coming soon. Last question I did have for you, and it's kind of a fun one and kind of a watershed moment. What are your thoughts on Marie-Philippe Poulin being named, I guess, the Northern Star Award, which is formerly the Lou Marsh being the first female hockey player to win, best athlete in Canada?
It's pretty awesome. She's a great player. She hits. You don't worry about her in situations or worry about Team Canada, because she's on the team. She's going to nail it. You don't even think about it. She is, she's a good ambassador for the game too. I mean, she's a next generation younger than Haley. So I love Haley. I think I'm like, oh, why didn't Haley get it? But I love Marie-Philippe Poulin too. I've never had a chance to meet her or speak with her, but she's definitely a great ambassador for the game, and her game is next level. Like, her ability to score those clutch goals is pretty amazing.
Well, Theresa, thank you very much for coming on the podcast with us, and hopefully we can maybe chat again sometime soon down the future on more things minor hockey related in Vanderhoof area.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much for having me on and talking female hockey tonight.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, and that was our interview there with Theresa Philips. And what were your thoughts on that interview, Brendan?
Well, just great to see, have a northern product like Theresa, who's been in the game a long time and has seen some really good players come out of Vanderhoof area, most notably Ella Boone and Lyndon Mackow, who we've had on this very podcast. Other Vanderhoof products that have come to mind that have come through the minor hockey system that she has watched or coached, including Booker Daniel, who was a Cariboo Cougar. So, very happy to have somebody like her finally on our podcast. Just maybe talking about, her experience and her passion for the game and trying to grow the female brand of things as well as talking about that equipment shed that they opened up in Vanderhoof and how that idea was inspired by a northwestern community that she visited down in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes area there. So helping those that normally would not be able to afford the cost of equipment can play in the Vanderhoof area. So very successful there. So nice to get in touch with somebody like Theresa, who's been around the game a long time and is still enjoying it at the executive level.
Almost certainly. And it is people like Theresa that really keep the game going here in these northern communities, as it can be harder for some families to access the resources to be able to play the game. And, to have her spearheading a program in place to really help with that is huge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Excellent. So now we're going to move on to our second interview.
Yes, it's the Northeast Predators from BC, Dawson Creek, Fort St. John and area. Had a really good medaling efforts there in Wickfest, taking home 3 medals in all 3 age groups. Caught up with assistant coach Bobbie Zimmer as well as Len Potvin from the coaching staff and managerial side of things, and just talking about their programs as a whole, talking about how they want to continue to build it following COVID, as well as some of the players they've had in the past that they've moved on to higher levels, such as the Northern Capitals. Welcome back to the Hockey North podcast. With me now, a couple members of the Northeast BC Predators female program. A lot of success happening out in the northeast corner of the province. The Predators female rep hockey programs. The U18s at Wickfest earlier this year won gold. U15 teams won silver, and the U13s also gold medaling at the very same tournament. With me now, Len Potvin as well as Bobbie Zimmer. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I guess first and foremost, just maybe talk about the recent success of the Northeast BC Predators female rep hockey program. First and foremost, obviously, the main program, the U18s, winning gold at Wickfest, and then you have the U15s and the U13s medaling first or second in those as well. Just maybe talk about your U18 program for a minute and what makes this one so successful this year.
Well, I think this year compared to last year coming out of the COVID season, we were a little bit shaky, as I'm sure a lot of teams were. We ended up going to a tournament in Calgary and didn't fare very well at all. So we had a talented team. It was just a little bit in disarray. Moving into this year, we had some players graduate. I think 5 players graduate from our team last year. We had some U15 players come up and play with us this year on the U18s. And it's just more of a balanced team. All the players really get along well. And we've had some really good success. We play in a league against Prince George, Williams Lake, and Northwest. The Northwest team kind of stretches from Vanderhoof all the way to Prince Rupert, so they always seem to have a strong team. But yeah, our girls really seem into it this year. We always have great numbers at practice, and yeah, it's just all around a really good team that really gets along.
You mentioned how your team was a bit in shambles there coming out of the COVID year last year, not having the season you wanted. Did you lose some kids like some other northern communities might have, where some kids and their families may have, moved temporarily to find some ice in other areas and may not have come back? Did that kind of hurt your numbers at all, or was that really not much of a thing in your area?
No, you know what, like I coached, this is my third year coaching the U18s. During the COVID year, our numbers really stayed strong. All we ever did was practice. We played our U15 team once in a while. Our numbers stayed really strong all the way through COVID, and it was just practice time. I was really happy with the girls. We never lost any interest. We had good numbers last year, enough to kind of field the team. And where our team kind of stretches all the way from Fort Nelson to Dawson Creek and then down to Mackenzie. So it's always really strong, and we pull girls from all of those teams, but our numbers really never have dipped. It's been quite good.
Now, one of your assistants right beside you, Bobbie Zimmer, played for the Predators program. Just maybe talk about, you not being too far removed from your playing days, going to the tournament as a coach and kind of helping the kids along and kind of helping them prepare for the atmosphere, as well as the increased level of competition that comes at tournaments such as Wickfest.
Well, definitely like experiencing, like from when the Predators program started, I started in Bantam, seeing that kind of, I'm just trying to make sure the girls are close, especially it's happened that year coming out of COVID. We practiced through COVID, everybody committed, very committed players. I found we actually got really good during COVID. But it was just the fact that so many players left. And so we had so many new players coming from Bantam up to midget, and then going to Calgary, that clash, kind of like not really being a team yet and losing so much. I really thought it was important for the girls to really doing like team bonding activities, kind of like those things, making sure they're close, making sure there's no like little cliques or kind of like those things, preparing them for that. And just preparing them like just the confidence too, like always keeping their confidence up and making sure that they're not overconfident, but they're not down on themselves and stuff like that. So I think that's really important.
Now you've played for the program. How strong and how popular is women's hockey in the northeast part of the province? Is there a lot of uptake at all the age levels?
I find that there's definitely more. There's definitely more, I feel like right now, lower age, like starting. Quite a few girls quit at about Bantam midget level because we're so far apart, right? So there's nothing's really close. So lots of girls quit at the Bantam midget level. So it's kind of just trying to encourage those peewees to keep going and stuff like that. So, and our girls as well. But it's I would say the popularity is like just the population and the amount of girls just here wanting to play is kind of difficult. Once you go down south and there's so many girls and you can actually have tryouts and make quite a few cuts. But yeah, I'd say it's popular. It's just the population we have here.
How encouraging is it to see your U13 and U15 programs also medal at these tournaments?
It's quite good. We knew that we had like our U13 program right now is really taking off. They're going to push for the provincials. Actually, all three of our teams are going to the provincials, and that U13 team is very strong. So hopefully we can keep that team together as long as we can with the Predators. We know that some of them will probably leave and go to other programs, but that's just the way it is. And our U15 team is kind of really quite a surprise. We kind of struggled for numbers with the U18, so we need to pull some U15s once in a while, and then U15s pull from the 13s. They affiliate those players, but it's our coaching staff with the U15s has done a really good job about recruiting some girls from Fort Nelson, and I'm not sure if they have any from Tumbler Ridge, but Craig, their coach, has really put together a good team.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, do you have a really strong crop of female hockey players in those allotted age groups, and hence why you're seeing the success that you are?
Yeah, they're all. We've got some really strong girls in the U13 program, and then I would say that the U15s and U18s just have really strong, balanced teams. They're just to pick a strong girl off of each team and say that that's our best player with the U15s or the U18s. I would say that we don't have that one individual that stands out. They're very well balanced.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that a lot of your kids? You talk about how it's tough to keep teams together sometimes because a lot of players will go to different programs at a certain point. Do a lot of your players in the Preds program jump to the AAA level where there is the Northern Capitals, or a lot of them pursue the academy route?
Yeah, quite a few actually. I've got some names here. We got Maria Eyre, Haley Armstrong, who else? Casey Dittner, Keegan Goulet, who plays for, now she's playing university level. She plays for U of C. But quite a few, they start off with the Preds and go off and play somewhere else. It's typically Northern Capitals. There's a few girls playing their last year in Edmonton right now, AAA. But yeah, so I'd say quite a few.
What does it mean to your program that they're reaching that higher level, either going the academy route or going AAA? Obviously, you'd like to hang on to them for as long as you can, because that means more success for the Predators program. But just so that they're kind of taking their journey as far as they can, what does it mean to both of you to kind of see players like the ones you just mentioned go to those higher levels, as it were, and pursue their dreams in the game?
For me, I like to actually follow those girls and see how well they're doing. That's where your show helps. I did listen to a few of your shows, and our local girls were on them. It's the Predators are very, very proud society. Yeah, I mean, if those girls can go and find better places to grow and play, we encourage that. We don't want to hold anybody back. We just ran a kind of a Christmas practice here, and several of those girls were out there practicing with all of our other Predators. So it gives them younger girls, players to look up to. And yeah, they're just kind of once a Predator, always a Predator kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Where do you play most of your games out of?
Well, what do you mean, like just where we play our games?
Yeah, like you draw kids from everywhere, obviously. Do you play most of your games in Fort St. John, Dawson Creek?
We typically play in tournaments. That's where we get most of our games. Our league games, we always have to travel. Once in a while we have our super weekend in Fort St. John, but where do we go? We're going to
Prince George,
Williams Lake. We're going to be going to Burns Lake here soon.
So what we'll do typically is have all of those teams get together. Those three other teams that we just mentioned will come up to Fort St. John, or Taylor is where we play, where our ice time is. We'll play what we call a super weekend against those teams, and then we'll end up going to, I think our first trip is to Burns Lake to play Northwest and Prince George and Williams Lake. Then we'll end up in Prince George on another weekend, and then down to Williams Lake. So kind of cuts down on the travel. Everybody just makes a trip to each town, and that's kind of our league. And then we look for tournaments or exhibition games throughout the season.
What kind of tournaments do you normally attend on an annual basis?
Well, we actually started out before we even went to Calgary. We went down to Richmond and played in a tournament called the Pacific Coast Female Rep Classic. And it was, we went down there last year and didn't fare very well, just like we did in Calgary last year. And we went to this Richmond tournament, and we did excellent. And this was our first tournament of the year. We made it to the final. We lost against Victoria Reign 2-1 in the final game. So we were pretty pleased with that tournament. We knew we had something kind of special going coming out of that tournament, and it's carried on.
Mm-hmm. How important is it for your programs to kind of get a gauge of where they're at playing against the bigger, more populous areas? Meaning, when you go down to the Richmonds or the Victorias and you play against a lot of these bigger centers where there's obviously players are more affluent in all age groups, how do you try and use those tournaments as a gauge to kind of see where your teams are at?
Well, typically female hockey in BC, for whatever reason, isn't tiered very well. But it seems like everybody's kind of, all the female programs are starting to realize that. And so you can go play Richmond's or Vancouver teams and compete very well. The smaller centers can. So that's a little bit refreshing. So it is nice for the girls to go and play against teams from Richmond and Victoria and not get discouraged with outrageous scores against us. And we've done quite well. Losing to Victoria Reign 2-1 in a championship game was it was a real positive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just maybe talk about when provincials are for your three programs, where they're at this year, and maybe what the expectations are.
So our U18 program it has the provincials in Williams Lake this year, which is kind of nice. It's going to cut down on our travel. I would say that the team that we've put together, we should be able to win a handful of games there, and hopefully make it to the finals. We'll really have to see. As far as our U15s, I'm not quite sure where they're at this year, if they've actually chosen a location, or for that matter, the U13s. But I would say that the U13s are going to push pretty hard to, there'll be high expectations there for them for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, Len and Bobbie, thank you very much for jumping on the podcast with us. It's nice to see that all of your programs are doing quite well in the northeast corner of the province, and I'm sure we can possibly do this again sometime.
For sure, that's really good.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
Right. Thank you very much.
All right, and that was our final interview for the podcast. And Brendan, what are your final thoughts?
Just nice to see another program find some on ice success. That was, I don't want to say in disarray, and Glenn kind of mentioned that during the interview, but a chance to kind of regroup in a transition year and then come back strong, and not only come back strong, but win a gold medal at the Wakefest tournament in Calgary, and then have your U15s and U13s be a pleasant surprise as well. So it's showing that there's a lot of strength in numbers, despite maybe the smaller geography in that area of the province. And I commend the work that Bobbie and Len are doing, along with the rest of the coaching staff and players in that Northeast Predators program.
No, most certainly. With that said, is there any other final thoughts here we have as we look ahead to next week?
No, just the fact that we're going to be focusing on the Blue Liners in next week's episode. I will not tip off who those two guests are, but I know that for our northern viewers all across the region, they will not be disappointed with the quality of guests that'll be on our podcast next week.
Absolutely, and super excited for us here to be able to provide some quality interviews for you guys listeners. And as Brendan said, you guys are going to be very excited and you're not going to be disappointed with who we're going to have lined up next week. And with that said, have a good week. We'll see you here next week.
I need to know.